Like when I was a sales rep, the only thing I cared about was being the best. And I wanted to not only have the best numbers and the best, KPIs and, the best track record. I wanted to be known as the best.
Hey, what's going on? It's Joel Irway, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. I am super honored, super excited to have a good friend of mine on the podcast. Today's name is Cole Gordon from Closers into Leaders. And today we are going to dive into all things sales teams, sales conversations, all things sales. I know a lot of you who are listening right now have probably jumped into this game, and maybe you have a salesperson on your team. Maybe you have a few salespeople on your team. Maybe you've been struggling to recruit a salesperson, a solid salesperson on your team. I wanted to make sure that I had Cole come on the show and talk about all the things that he does to manage a great sales team. Actually, more than managing, find, recruit, train, and retain a great sales team. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Cole, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here.
Thanks, man. Sounded so excited.
So excited. I know.
We had such a great pre-show conversation. The energy was high, and then, thanks, man. I'm just teasing you. So Cole and I have been connected for a while now. We run in similar circles. We're in at least one mastermind together. Actually, technically two now. So we have been running in the same circles for quite a few years. I've got to know Cole, super intelligent guy, super smart guy, and he has done some incredible things with his own company, grown that very, very quickly. But Cole is respected in this industry as somebody who knows how to lead and manage a high-performing sales team. Cole, why don't you give us a quick, let's say 30-second, 60-second background about who you are, and give us some more info give us the need to know info about you.
Yeah, for sure. 4 or 5 years ago, had an agency business, Done For You, ads, hated it, sucked at fulfillment, probably wasn't really even that good at ads. And I was in this high ticket coaching program at the time where my revenues were decent, and despite my skill with ads not being very good. So everybody was like, oh, you're just so good at sales. Like you're just a sales guy. And I was so new in my entrepreneurial career that when you're brand new into anything that you're doing, you're kind of trying to find your identity within that thing, right? So I very clinged on to that, and then got burned out of the agency. It was like, Done For You, sucks. And I had friends who were doing full-time sales who had actually sold me into that program, and I knew they were making $10,000, $20,000 a month. So I was like selling, full-time, high ticket, commission, remote, all that stuff. So gave all my clients away to a really, really good agency owner who actually knew what he was doing. And then went into full-time selling, had a long road of sucking for a long time, not being as good as I thought I was, ended up becoming the best person on my first team. Finally, it took a long time. And then after that, became the top performer for several other teams before starting my own sales training and recruitment company, which was probably now about 13 months ago. And so we went from 0 to about 6 million run rate within 11 months. And, we work with people who really a lot of times are anywhere from about 50 grand a month in high ticket sales to all the way our top client does 2.5 million a month. And we just help them find, hire, and train top 1% sales talent. So that might be somebody who's never hired a salesperson before, and they're trying to, for the first time, get out the phone, bring on a new sales rep, reclaim their time and scale their company. Or maybe they just want more sales reps. They have a current sales team, or their sales team's underperforming. And it's like, how can we lead, train, and manage those people effectively to get them back performing? So those are kind of the main things of what we do. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, man.
What's interesting is if you had told me, like if you were a client of mine and you were like, Joel, help me build this, I need to get lead flow coming in for this Done For You offer. If I were to kind of like guess what the market size is for your offer, I never would have guessed for you to be able to go from 0 to 6 million run rate in 11 months. Like I just didn't think it was that big. Ignorance is, that's my ignorance showing, but it's amazing to see how much demand there is for this offer. my first question to you is, where do you see like the biggest problem that most people have with finding great sales talent? And maybe you can lead us down the road of like what are the characteristics of a top 1% salesperson?
Yeah, well, the first thing you said, I thought the same thing. To be honest, like I, my offer evolved into the sales training and recruitment. Before it was just pure sales coaching, right? And I just kind of listened to the market. I was like, wow, this is a huge need. And to be honest, I probably could have scaled faster if I would have realized that the market cap was as big as it was. But at a certain point, it just was like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to scale till there's some obvious diminishing returns and you're hitting that. So, dude, I was right there with you, man. And it still surprises me to this day. And I think there's a lot more room than even where we're at. But in terms of the question was the biggest mistakes or what people do and how to find the talent in the first place.
Yep.
So a couple things. Let's start at the very core, right? You got to remember, a lot of people forget that what you're really doing at the end of the day is providing the salesperson with an amazing opportunity from a career standpoint, right? So as a marketer that if the thing that can do the most heavy lifting for you in your business, but especially like a marketing campaign, is what? The offer, right?
Yep.
Offer could do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Well, lo and behold, when you're out there trying to recruit a sales rep, you're operating in a marketplace, okay? And the best people will gravitate towards the best career opportunity, AKA the best offer. So I always want to look at, what type of offer are you putting out there? What type of career opportunity are you putting out there for the reps? Okay. So there's a few things that makes this up. There's obviously the comp structure, right? More particularly, like what are the on-track earnings? If they hit what you would like, let's say you're closing 20 to 30% and you're closing this amount of contract value. When you overlay that with the comp structure, what would they be making a year if they just do what you do? Right? So what's the earnings potential within the position? Another big thing is like, what does a lead flow like? I'm not totally like all about, oh, you should only do inbound leads and no outbound or whatever. Like I love outbound. I love prospecting. I think any salesperson who wants to be at the best should be able to do both. But if you have amazing quality inbound lead flow, that is more attractive to the sales rep.
Yep.
Also like, how good is your actual offer? If like there's certain companies we work with that, their offer is just amazing. They have a great brand story, a great, their testimonials are insane. It's like the offer is super transformational. It like really impacts the people. The sales reps are getting messages a week later, like prospects are thanking them for enrolling them and selling them. That matters. And then the final thing that makes up a good offer for a salesperson, a good career opportunity for a salesperson, is the culture, right? Particularly like how good of a leader are you, right? Is the culture like sticky? Like do people like love being a part of it? How good are you at communicating vision, mission, and values, right? That's huge. Can you enroll them into the larger vision? Because people are more apt to perform and work really, really hard for something that they perceive as bigger than themselves. Look at Amazon, look at Apple, look at all of those companies. That's actually a higher driver than pay by far. So that's probably the one people most miss out on. But those 4 keys there are really what you want to look at in terms of your career opportunity. Because the inverse of that, where most people screw up, is they, have this mentality of, oh, I'm on my high horse as an entrepreneur, this sales rep should prove what they can do for me and just go out and hunt and get me business before I even like invest in them at all. And then they just like, the only people that they end up getting are really flaky, inexperienced reps who suck. Because all the experienced ones are going to the good offers.
Mm-hmm.
So like, one of the things I try to do with clients is, sometimes they don't have this issue. Some of them, they do need a little bit of a reset because they're not empathetically looking at it from the sales rep's point of view. And I'm like, let's just rework how this offer is structured. And then lo and behold, now we get better people. Super easy. So that's the first one. I have some more stuff in terms of how to actually find the people once you have that. But I'll turn it over to you if you have any thoughts on that. We can wrap on that for a second.
I think where the biggest aha moment for me, and I would love to hear your feedback on this,
Mhm.
is for the entrepreneur who is looking for a sales rep, right? One of the things that you mentioned is like the entrepreneur has to have the leadership qualities, and you said the biggest driver, overpay, was getting the sales rep to buy into the bigger vision, the bigger mission of the company, right? I think if we were to correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to marry the two perfect people, entrepreneur and a salesperson, that entrepreneur has to be, based on those qualities that I just heard you say. It would be my assumption, or be my inference, to assume that the entrepreneur has to be somebody who really wants to build a business. And I say that because there are plenty of lifestyle entrepreneurs out there, and I'm saying this because of my own discoveries, right? Of having some issues managing sales reps, and finding great sales reps, and it just became a drain on my life until I really kind of figured out what I really wanted my business to become, which is more lifestyle driven. Do
Right.
you find that to be the case? Like, if you find a lifestyle entrepreneur um, who looks for a sales rep, and do you find them having more conflicts than, say, an entrepreneur who is looking to really be a business owner and grow that into something substantial, more than just fulfilling their core lifestyle demands?
Right. So that's actually an amazing question. So um, I just think have to find the right, you got to find two people who have the same values. Okay. So I'll give you a great example. Is we have a client who she actually is local here in Arizona. She does about $100,000 a month, but she was got to, help scale from 30 to 100 to 150. And then once she got there, it was very like, I might want to do more, but I'm really like going to pause here and make sure that my health is good, my stability is good. I have the lifestyle that I want to have, that, the things that I got into this business to do in the first place are being honored. And that's really, really good. That's like self-aware that you're able to do that, because it's easy to get on the scale train, right? And I'm like, okay, totally cool. And then when you look at her sales team, they have the same values. They're all very like, they're getting into this for those same things, right? They're a commission-based remote sales rep who's doing high ticket, one or two call close, pretty short sales cycle, because they want to travel. They want to be able to go to Europe and still take calls. They want to be able to, make their own schedule, and, have kind of time in the morning for their families if that's the thing that they want to do, or, structure things on their terms. So, for somebody like her who has more of a lifestyle type of business, you want to find somebody who has that same type of value. And then when you're onboarding and enrolling that person into the company, it's communicating that those are the values. So those are things that, if these are important to you, you're really going to like it here. Now, but if that same lifestyle type of entrepreneur, let's say, take on somebody who was like me when I was a sales rep. Like when I was a sales rep, the only thing I cared about was being the best. And I wanted to not only have the best numbers and the best, KPIs and, the best track record, I wanted to be known as the best too. It's very like that just was what I wanted. Nothing wrong with that. And so I gravitated towards cultures that kind of felt the same way in terms of what the entrepreneur, their value system. So it's just one of those things where the more clear you are with, I think you're hiring on employees, team members, the more clear you are with your values and what the culture really is. Like, the product of a good culture is repelling the people who are not a right fit, and then really sucking the people in who are. And then that helps build retention as well.
Yep.
It's like a marketing message and a brand, right? Same function. So that's a great question, man. And that's how I would look at it. Because there's tons of really good closers I know who are in a season of their life, man, they're good. But they're in a season of their life where they're like, dude, I'm not working the 50, 60-hour weeks. I'm done.
Yep.
I want 10K a month, 15K a month. I want to be able to have like, I love working, I love selling, but I'm not trying to kill myself. And so that person's a great pair for somebody who has the same goals with their business.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because that's that was a big lesson that I learned from working with some salespeople that were not a great fit for my company, and not a great fit for my my personality.
Mhm.
And as I heard you talking about it, it's like the light bulb kind of went off. It's like, okay, well, you know, there are different goals with each entrepreneur, and depending on what the salesperson is looking for, I think that's a really important correlation that you have to make early on, or it could be a tumultuous relationship between the two.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, cool. So let's talk now about properly managing a sales team or a salesperson, right? When I have dealt with, I don't want to call salespeople out. Like, this is not my intention. I'm just speaking from personal experience. One of the major problems that I ran into when I was managing multiple salespeople, like at different stages, like usually it was just one person at a time. Sometimes we would have two, but I found that some salespeople can be needy, meaning I don't want to say that in a bad way, even though it came out bad, but they can be. Uh, I feel like salespeople are typically more empathetic and more emotional than, say, other types of people. Do you find that to be normally true, like just kind of on a broad spectrum, like more relational standpoint?
Yeah. Almost all of the time.
Okay.
So, you got somebody that it can be frustrating. Like sometimes, and it's funny because like this will not sound correct, but it's like you'll get frustrated with somebody, a salesperson one time. It's like, why do people have to have emotions? It's because in sales, it can be it can mess with your emotions. It can kind of be a roller coaster sometimes.
Yep.
So it's interesting because those people who are a little bit emotional and they have their ups and downs, they're usually the best. But sometimes you got to just, you got to be able to ride those waves a little bit.
Mm-hmm. What's the best way to handle somebody who's emotional, and from a managerial standpoint, who is not necessarily used to managing a lot of people? How do you manage an emotional type of person?
Right. So I'll go over kind of my overall management philosophy, right? So the big key thing for people to know here is that sales team will never exceed the level in which it's led, right? The leadership is the most important thing. And like a lot of the stuff I teach in terms of sales teams, not only from what's, my experience in building a 7-figure solve in our company, but also like I've worked with, most of the top high ticket companies doing 8 figures or 8 figures or more, whatever, and seeing how their sales teams work and whether they are aware of it or not, like the patterns and the things that I can kind of pull out that made them successful and how to like see what, was going on across all those teams. So this is coming from that as well. And one of the big things is leadership, right? And great leadership. So how do we lead our team effectively? There's really 2 ways, okay? Well, first we want to create inputs, right? Inputs is like kind of like data and feedback. Now there's 2 types of inputs. There's quantitative and there's qualitative. So quantitative is what everybody kind of leans towards, right? That's having a great tracking dashboard, making sure you're tracking all your KPIs, you're tracking every step through the funnel, so to speak. The problem with that is though, because of regression mean, the natural variance that happens anytime you're working with numbers and humans, you need a large data subset to really get what's called statistical significance, right? In sales, we're going to need at least 30 to 50 calls. And I don't even think that's actually statistically significant, but that's kind of like the minimum to see a true trend, probably 50. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait 50 calls to find out if my sales rep's in a rut, right?
Yep.
So should we track? Absolutely. It's a really, really good thing to do, especially when you track all of the proper metrics. But what we also really want to do on top of creating quantitative inputs is qualitative, right? And qualitative is really like your temperature check on how the team's doing on a day-to-day basis. So we do that through a sales management, which the big 2 things I'll recommend for that is how you need daily meetings in the morning. And it's not having the meetings, it's how to run the meetings. Okay. So probably after working with about 100 clients so far, sales teams, I bet only 2 I've ever worked with, I've reviewed their meetings, their team meetings, and they've been good. Like most people just totally suck. I mean, it's just really bad and in comparison with that. So it's not enough to have the meeting, it's how to run the meeting, right? That's the first type of qualitative assessment to see, is this person in pocket, how they're doing, et cetera. The second thing, and this is a really good time efficient, is what's called a qualitative end of day report, where they list the calls they had, what happened, what was great, what could be improved, what's the next steps, if they enrolled, what payment plan, if they didn't enroll, what was it, et cetera. And they list all those things out. They list all the leading indicator activities out in terms of what they did, self-gen, marketing, prospecting, follow-up. And then they give themselves ratings as well as an overall assessment on how they're feeling, where they need help, et cetera. It's almost like a little journal for them each day, which is good for them to raise level of self-awareness so they auto-regulate. So for you to get a temperature check of what's actually going on with them so you can coach them more effectively. Okay. And so the big thing is just really kind of that assessment and that temperature check and as many inputs as you possibly can. And through the end of day reports as well, what we can do is we can pinpoint where might be the areas, because we can't review all the calls until we have a full-time sales manager, right? So you kind of got to pinpoint and pick and choose. But with that, we have all the consults and we can zero in and be like, that's what I need to review. We could review that on the next morning meeting. So when you run that system, I mean, there's more to it, but that's how I teach it. What's great is your sales management time daily can be as low as 10 minutes, all the way up to maybe an hour or 75. But, that's pretty efficient. And you can do that with multiple reps too. But those are the things that we want to do. The last thing I'll add as well is the frame and how you're coaching is really important. So it's all about just as the offer and your business is helping the prospect go from current situation to desired situation, right? Your career opportunity for every single team member on your team is helping them go from current situation to desired situation, right? So I want to know how my salesperson ticks, what's important to them, what their goals are, like who they are as people, how they work, what's excited about, what they want to do, where they're at now, where they want to be, all of that stuff. And I want to know those things, anchor them down. And then when I'm coaching, I'm not coaching them so they can make me more money or so they can do things the way I want them to be done. I'm coaching them so that they can hit their goals. And I'm constantly weaving that into everything that I do. So that's really key as well. I think, if anybody implements even half of that, they're already in the top 1% of teams I see. Most people, it's just not even close. Mm-hmm. Most people, when somebody's sales rep's not performing or their sales team's not performing, I'll ask the first question. It's almost dumb, right? But I'll ask, do you know why they're not performing? And the answer is always no. And there's no shame in underperformance. There's only shame in not knowing why, right? So we want to have a relentless pursuit of clarity to find out what the real problem is and to see the problem as clearly as we can see it. Because usually when you fully understand and see the problem clearly, the answer is dumbly obvious. It's duh. You don't need to be an expert sales trainer to fix that problem once you are able to see it super clear. It's just obvious, So that's my sales management spiel, man.
Yeah. I mean, so there's clearly a process for everything. There's a process for management. There's a process for coaching. And, reading a bunch of leadership books over the past couple of years, you start to realize everything in your life is really about being coachable or being coached. It's leading people through a process, whether it's your customers, whether it's your leads, whether it's your staff members, your employees, right? It's all about leading them through whatever situation that they're in. I mean, you nailed it on the head with everything that you said. I've never heard sales management explained like that. Most people, it's all like hire a 7-figure closer and, get these closers. And it's, it's this misconception because there's so much more to it. Much more to it. I mean, that's what that's the selling what they want, give them what they need, right?
I was really going to say that. So it's my marketing, somebody might say, well, Cole said the most important thing is leadership, but I saw an ad and it said, let me give you a proven sales rep on a silver platter, right? But look, like I found after testing, like I'm very like, you're always kind of in this dance with the market, right? And it's like, you're seeing what they respond to, what they don't. And I'll never forget one day I was doing a launch, or one week I was doing a launch, and we had like this first burst of enrollments, and then like I went through like day 4, I think it was 2-week launch or something like that. So like day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, like crickets. Just couldn't. It's like couldn't get anybody to respond. And so I started to steer the wheel a little bit. I'm like, okay, well maybe let's go this way. And I'll never forget, man. I started talking about sales teams and recruiting, and just I started harping on those strings, and it was like just sold out like crazy. And that's when I knew it was like that's the demand trigger in like the marketplace, is this sales rep thing. And so that's always what I, give them what they want. But what I really try to do with everybody is cultivate. Very few people, sometimes they actually have it. And that's like, that's great. But usually they don't. So it's like, give them the rep, but I'm also like cultivating them as a person and as a leader. Because even beyond the sales team, if you want to scale from 100 to 500 to 500 to 1 million, like you got to be good at managing people and leading people and really like helping them and coaching them on how to make decisions, right? Every single client I've had of above $1 million a month, the organizations I've been a part of that have been above $1 million a month, they all have that, right? So it's like, I know if every single one has it, I know it's a sign. I really try to, when I can get that in a client, they just crush it. Like it's just a game changer for them.
Yeah. What do you see as the limit then for that lifestyle entrepreneur who just wants us, I don't want to say just wants, but doesn't have the aspirations of getting to $500,000, $1 million a month, right? Because clearly you're gonna need a team, a decent sized team. It's all relative, but like you're gonna need to lead a team to really make that happen. But for the lifestyle entrepreneur who wants to stay small and low stress,
right,
doesn't want to lead a team, what do you see that ballpark revenue cap at?
Yeah, I would say anywhere from, it depends on your model, right? I can tell you my personal experience. I was at about 100 to 150K a month, 85% profit margin. And I was sitting there thinking, is it worth it? Like I can see 500 grand a month. I can probably do $1 million a month eventually. Like I'm pretty confident if I want to deal with the BS that it's going to take to get there. I have many clients there. So like I kind of know the path. And it's like, I'm just always asking like, I think my health is really important. My social life is really important. I think, is it worth it is a really important question. So I know for me, it was at about 100, 150. And, and with really good margins. And that's where I was like, is it worth it? And I obviously chose to scale. I think it's just in my DNA, man. It's just one of those things that even if it makes me more unhappy, like I gotta go through that journey to realize what I really want. So who knows? Maybe we'll be talking next year and I'll be chilling at 150 and I learned my lesson. Who knows? But yeah, I thought that that's where it was for me. And I stayed there for a while, really contemplating if I wanted to do it or not. And then I did. So I think it's that level. One thing I will say in hindsight is, when you're, if you want to stay smaller, one thing I would really look at is really increasing your prices and increasing the amount of customers that you upsell into your back end. Because I think honestly, I could probably have hit 300 to 400 by myself. If I just would have increased my price point and just really focused on keeping the customers that I had, So that's one thing to consider. Obviously, it depends on your model. Like, I like not one-to-one, but kind of one-to-one group hybrid and a little bit of done for you. Obviously, because we do the recruiting. So that's kind of what my model would have been. If you just do 2 group coaching calls a week, I don't know, like maybe this 100, 150, obviously probably your price is lower. You're going to have to build a sales team. So it just depends.
You're looking low hundreds, right? 1 to 200, we'll say.
think so, and then, and man, you can have good margins because guess what? When you build a team, you start cranking money on ads, you start paying out huge commission checks, your margins go down. Okay. So you might be making, one thing that's frustrating is like, and I've seen this in clients is like, well, we tripled. I'm way more stressed, but I'm making the same amount of money that I was. Yeah. And it's like, but they might not be taking all the sales calls, but now they're managing a bunch of people. So, there is, in a perfect world, you should be making more. Like we can look at their margins. I'm pretty good at that and trying to rearrange that stuff, but that's something you have to look out for too.
Yep.
So, yeah.
100%. All right. Let's talk about best practices when hiring your first sales rep. I want to give a little context behind this situation just to give my listeners where this is coming from. I had a client last week who built a mini webinar. She's in our mentorship program. She's crushing it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, brand new offer. She had never sold this before and instantly filled up her calendar. I think the first 5 weeks, she did like 35K. And so she's quickly trying to find a sales rep to get her off the phones. She found a sales rep and literally the first day she quit after like the third call. And so now my client is freaking out because she's like, what do I do? It's, going through this whole cycle again.
Yeah.
What do you see as like the biggest mistake somebody makes? I don't really know her process of how she found the sales rep. I don't know the background, but how common is that story? Maybe not exactly, but like a sales rep that quits very, very early on. What could she have possibly have done to avoid that? Or, what's the best practices for hiring a sales rep?
Yeah. So the quick commentary on that situation is like, it's better for that person to quit on day one than it is for them to go a month and go through a bunch of calls and you waste a bunch of time and money on that person and then they quit. Right. So, look at the positive side of that. Now let's talk about kind of properly, maybe how we could have avoided that in the first place. The whole term or the whole phrase, hire slow, fire fast, definitely, it's there for a reason, right? So for people who read, a big thing with the sales industry, I would say the high ticket sales industry, is that there's not a lot of like literature or training on it. So, there's tons of Brian Tracy and sales books and a lot of these sales material out there that you're going to read a book on. You got to understand the context of where that's written. It's not written by these companies who are in this high ticket info, little small niche world that we're in, right? These are software companies, door to door. And while you can learn a lot of stuff, a lot of the stuff that you're going to learn in terms of sales recruiting is very much the high churn, throw a bunch of mud against the wall and see what sticks. Now that's great. But if you're, an inbound model and you're paying for leads, they hired you, they got a mini webinar, they're crushing it. But they're paying $100 an appointment, and sure they're getting 10x when they're closing, but it's $100 an appointment and the opportunity cost of not closing if their closer doesn't close. So it's there's more risk in hiring salespeople in our world if you have inbound. So because of that, the big things that we want to do is one, we want to create a massive amount of volume in terms of recruiting pipeline. Okay. The second thing we want to do is have a slower hiring process. It's very like we vet pretty freaking hard. Okay. And so we do it in 6 steps in our hiring process. The first thing is like, think of generating your recruiting pipeline, like generating your marketing pipeline. Okay. So are you going to sell better? Like, let's say you're a phone sales guy. Are you going to sell better if you have 25 appointments in the week and you don't need any one call? Or are you going to sell better if you have one and you got to make the sale to hit quota? Obviously, if you have one, you're going to be in a place of scarcity, not in a place of abundance like you are in the other scenario. Same thing with recruiting. If I generate 100 applications, my chances of finding the right person is like, it's just, I probably have too many people to pick from, but if I'm like so busy, I'm on calls all day, every day, 5 calls a day, I'm stressed, I'm burned out, I'm exhausted. I make a few posts in a Facebook group, in my client group, and I get 10 applications. Most are crap, 2 are okay. out of the two I interview them, I hire the least worst option. You're starting, you're not in a good spot. We'll just say that, right? So we want to generate an abundance of people. And then once we have that, maybe let's say 10 people who on paper in 1 minute video look really, really good, we want to put them through a hiring process that's really helps vet. Typically what we do is application, we do a 1 minute video. We have a whole kind of funnel for that. And then we'll do a screening interview. And then after the screening interview, we do what's called a skills interview. And that's where they're going to get in a role play situation to really actually, because a lot of salespeople, they interview well, but they don't they interview way better than they sell, right? So let's see actually can the person do the thing? So we'll do a role play, and then we do a scorecard interview. So the key with the scorecard interview is that it's all based on creating a verbal upfront agreement on here's what the agreement is essentially. Like same thing you do with a client. Okay, I'm agreeing to do this, you're agreeing to do that, right? Same thing with the salesperson. Here's the outcomes of the position. Here's the constituent parts, the behaviors you'll have to do to make up that outcome. And here's what the time probably is going to require and what you're going to be compensated and be a part of in exchange for that. And we get a verbal agreement. That way, if there's no performance or there's, performance below where I want, I can always point back to the scorecard and just pull it up and say, look, we're not where we agreed. The other thing the scorecard interview does work really well too is what I do is I start with the company vision and then how the position fits into the vision and then the outcomes and KPIs of that position, the behaviors that are needed to generate those outcomes of KPIs, and then the time requirement and the investment requirement. So you can see most people, are they doing that when they hire salespeople? They don't do it when they hire anybody, know?
I was going to say, it's not just salespeople. They don't do it. Yeah. They don't do it for any position. Yeah.
So that's what I recommend. And that's what we do. That's what I recommend for anybody who wants to hire salespeople or anybody. And the issue is that a lot of people, they're like, dude, I'm taking 5 calls, 6 calls a day and doing fulfillment and running my own ads. I don't have time for that. And then that's why they would hire a company like us because we just do it for them.
Yep.
So that's the big thing, and you can just tell by the level I explained it. If you do that stuff, your chances of success are just so much more. It's almost like it's just inevitable that you're going to succeed if you have a high volume and a strong hiring and vetting process.
Yeah. It's funny. We just hired an executive assistant, probably our 4th assistant that we've gone through. And after the first 3, I realized we need to actually go through a hiring process. So we hired a company to do it. And, the first 3 assistants we hired on Upwork or whatever, right? Just went on a job board and oh, you look good. Boom. Here, help us out. Right. This last, when we found Katie, it took 30 to 45 days. Mm-hmm. It was a process, right? But we hired a company, the perfect assistant, I believe, Tim Francis's company. And they have a process for how to find virtual, executive assistants. And night and day. I mean, that's an understatement. Night and day. Just when you actually go through a vetting process and you they made us do the same thing. What's your goals? What's your company vision? And I got to be honest, it took me quite a lot of time because I didn't have it. I'm more that lifestyle driven entrepreneur. And I didn't have that vision. I didn't have all those things written down, but they are so important if you want to get a rock solid team member because they got to be aligned with how you operate and how you function and what the goals are for them. So, I can only imagine it's the same when hiring a salesperson.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is, man, especially when you're giving them opportunity, right? Your assistant, sure, you might be paying them hourly, but it's if you start giving them your sales calls and you give them 10 calls and oh man, I would have closed 5 of those and they closed 1, it's not just the app cost, it's the opportunity cost. And some of that's, some of it is inevitable, right? For me, I'm very good at sales. So I even brought on an amazing salesperson, but there's still some that he's going to miss that I would have closed. And that's just part of it. But I'm kind of willing to pay that to get back my time.
Yeah.
And to increase my availability, right? The larger the availability is, the more room there is for scale if I can fill the time. So there's those things to consider. Like it's never going to be most times they're not going to close as good as the entrepreneur. There's a whole discussion of why, unless like the entrepreneur is really bad. But yeah, it's well worth it. Just want to do it correctly.
Awesome. Dude, Cole, we talked about a ton of stuff today. I mean, we talked about, what to look for in hiring a sales team member, the management process of managing a sales team, and the intricate details of what you need to do if you really want a high performing sales team. Number one, and most importantly, we discussed leadership across the board in a company and how important that is for leading your sales team, right? And it makes sense as what your company name is, right? Closers into leaders. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Closers into leaders. Yep. Is there anything that we missed that you feel like is really important that we hit on that I didn't bring up?
No, I mean, usually my response to that question would be the leadership thing. It's huge, and it's something that like, it's one of those ugly things that nobody wants to work on, but it's actually my favorite thing like once I get people receptive to it, it's my favorite thing to coach people on. Cause it's like, it's really interesting you finally see somebody where they realize, oh, I'm not good at this leadership thing. Oh, I want to work on it. And like, you'll see how much they just grow. And it just makes like, when you can get that down, your ability to scale, and even if you're a lifestyle guy, man, like as soon as you really, really get it down, like you get a lot of your time back and it's nice. Right. So, that's the big thing I always try to drive home with people. Obviously it's part of the process. You do want to find the right sales rep. You do want to have the right onboarding and hiring and all of those systems. You want to train them effectively. It's all important, but leadership I think is key. And a lot of people just overlook it. It's not sexy.
Awesome, dude. Where can people reach out to you? Where do they connect with you?
Man, I think, Facebook, just DM is a great way if, they want to chat about, potentially working together or something. But another good resource just for your community would be my 7-Figure Selling Secrets Facebook group. I know we were talking about that group before the call and earlier, but, when they enter that group, if they put their email in, they automatically get sent through email Kajabi logins to a free course. And that has 30 plus hours of sales content on, everything sales training, the process end to end, whether that's prospecting, triage calls, outbound calls, setting calls, the whole sales process, objections, follow-up, all of that stuff. It has, how to train your setters, your closers, how to manage them, stuff to go deep on what we talked about here. Tons of different interviews from, our mutual friend, Travis Sago, Roland Frazier, all really, really good stuff in there. So tons of content. They can dive in. It's also in the units tab, but, we put it in a Kajabi real nice for people as well if they want to hunker in there and speed up the videos and stuff. So they get that for free. And then I post in the group like all the time. Like I'll probably just get off this and do a live in there and do a training for the group. So it's a good resource if they want to just hop in there for free.
Awesome, man. We'll make sure we include those links, and so it's easy for people to search and go find that group. Highly recommend being a part of that group. I'm a part of it. The way that Cole runs it is a masterclass in itself, and he always puts out fantastic content. And I don't say that lightly, because there are tons of groups and communities that you can become a part of, and this one stands out above the rest and cuts through the noise. So I would highly recommend following Cole. And dude, much appreciated you taking some time and sharing your knowledge with us, sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely, man.
Cool. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Go to reach out to Cole. Let him know you heard him on Experts Unleashed, and let him know that you appreciate him sharing his information and his wisdom with us. Cole, it's been a pleasure. And for everyone listening right now, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Peace out.